Well, welcome. My name is Tammy Stoffaker. I've been in the industry for about 24 years now, working in lighting showrooms, selling to retail, builder, designer, and commercial customers as well. I've also managed a showroom as well. I am joined today with my colleague, Nick. Nick, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nick Curtis. I've been with Decor for about 5.5 years now. And like Tammy, before I was doing this job, I was in a showroom as well in St. Paul. Pretty much been in lightings on and off since I was 16 years old.
So let's get started here. Quick overview of what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at some of the terminology, how we measure light, types of lamping, color, temperature, and rendering scales, and some practical application for moving forward. We're going to start with the really basic stuff here, the terminology, which again we'll cover throughout the entire presentation. But we're going to start with lamps, used to describe what many people would call light bulbs. And then often else in the industry as well, luminaires are used to describe light fixtures. And continuing on with some of that terminology, Nick's going to cover the types of lamping.
So a little bit of history here and what we've all seen. Fairly quick, recent changes in our industry. We're all familiar with incandescent, halogen, fluorescent bulbs, and now LED. Incandescent and halogen use a filament, heat, and a type of gas to create light. Halogen is a type of incandescent that uses halogen gases to create that light. Fluorescent light uses a mercury gas and electric current. LED now stands for light emitting diode, and those use a semiconductor as the light source. With LED, you have higher efficiency, more light or lumens per wattage drawn. It's just a longer lasting, brighter, more energy efficient light source. So speaking of light, let's talk about different measures of light. So let's talk about watts, which really isn't a measurement of brightness, which is what we've all been kind of used to in the past. It's really a measurement of energy drawn or energy usage. Lumens is actually the amount of visible light or brightness. So lumens in simple terms, and it's often denoted by a capital L or LM, is a measure of light that is total amount that's visible to the human eye from a lamp or a light source. So the higher the lumen rating, the brighter the lamp will appear. So in the past, we've all bought, say, a 50 watt and a 60 watt light bulb, and the 60 watts brighter than the 50 watt. And we've kind of made that connection between wattage and brightness. But that's not necessarily the case. This incorrectly linked power consumption to light output. The other note to pay attention to is delivered lumens versus initial lumens. Now, typically when you're buying a light bulb, it's just one rating, and that is delivered lumens. But when you're talking about a fixture that maybe has integrated LED, an integrated LED light source, that's where you have to pay attention to the delivered versus the initial. So let's take another example of that. So say you buy couple A19 standard LED light bulbs that are 8 watts, 800 lumen output. So that output is real, that's delivered from the light bulb. But if you put those two bulbs in a flush mount light that say has a white glass or frosted shade on it, that's going to drop typically between 10 and 15% of the actual lumens that are delivered. So when we're comparing a flush mount like that, that's going to have two bulbs put in it, we have to make that deduction to find out what our actual delivered lumens are going to be. When you're comparing it to, say, a lot of the new flush mount discs or wafer type lights that we're seeing in the marketplace now, because their rating is typically going to be delivered lumens. So you have to compare apples to apples with that, not just the initial. And taking a look at the chart on the right, you can see that based on the type of light source you have, wattage is clearly not linked to lumen output. This also gives you a nice visual on how many lumens are produced by specific types of lamps at certain wattages, which leads us into efficacy ratings. So lumens per watt, or efficiency or efficacy, is really how we're getting a rating of how energy efficient a light source or a light bulb is. Another measurement there is lux, or foot candles, and that is typically a measurement of the amount of light on a surface. So this is relatable to like a BR50 or a PAR 30 bulb, something that would go on a track or a recessed light that's made to highlight either art or a counter work surface, something on those lines.
Next, we're going to talk a little bit about color correlated temperature, which is measured in degrees Kelvin, so it is often just referred to as Kelvin. The lower the Kelvin temperature, the warmer the light will be. Candlelight is around 1900 degrees Kelvin, a traditional incandescent household bulb around 2700 degrees Kelvin. The fluorescent light that many of us grew up going to school with, or you see in office buildings, is around 4100 degrees Kelvin. And you'll see 5000 or 6500 K in maybe a dentist's office or a jewelry store, where either they want the teeth to look nice and bright or there's diamonds to really sparkle. But typically residentially, we're going to stick between 27 and 3500 degrees Kelvin. And then commercially around 3000 to 5000. So when you're considering which CCT to use, there's 3 questions that you need to kind of consider. The first is, what atmosphere are you trying to create? Do you want to invite people into an intimate setting or a warm, cozy lobby? If so, you're going to want to use a warmer or lower Kelvin temperature because those colors tend to emote a cozier, warm feeling. If you wanted to keep employees or students alert or convey an energetic, clean atmosphere, something cooler in a mid-range to higher range Kelvin would be appropriate. The second thing you'll want to consider is what other colors are being used in the space. The color of the light plays a really vital role in how those colors appear. If you have blue, silvers, grays, or white colors in your space, you'll probably want to consider a more cooler color temperature like 3500 K or 4100 K. If you have wood tones, golds, or reds, you'll want to consider a warmer tone like a 2700 to 3000. It's going to bring out more warmth in those types of finishes. Using a color temperature that doesn't complement your tones can really lead to creating muddy colors and will change the appearance of the fabrics and the paints and the finishes that your customers have spent so much time selecting. The third thing to consider is whether the lighting is going to be used, what other lighting will be used in the space or adjacent to the space. You want to make sure that you match the CCT of the light sources in the space to really maintain a cohesive feel. Unmatched Kelvin temperatures can distract from the atmosphere and kind of cause a visual confusion because colors will be rendered differently under different colors and different sources of light. Which leads me to CRI, or color rendering index. CRI will also play a role in the appearance of colors. Nick, can you fill us in a little bit about what CRI is?
Absolutely, Tammy. CRI stands for color rendering index. The color rendering index has a value between 1 and 100, and there's no natural, no unit of measurement. It's just a value. So natural light, sunlight, has a CRI of 100. Some incandescent, most halogen lamps also have the maximum color rendering rating of 100. In our industry, typically we've seen fluorescent lights down in that 60 to 70 range. Some have gotten better over the years. Now with LEDs, we kind of started with that 70 to 80. You'll see the better quality LEDs now at a rating of 90 or higher. And really what this helps with is, just as an example, if you go into a closet drawer, differentiating between black and navy blue socks. If you have a CRI of 90 or higher, you'll be able to easily tell that difference. If you don't, you'll have socks like I do, and they will be mismatched. So next is layers of light. It's recommended to have 3 layers of light in any space to create a comfortable, functional space. The first of these 3 is an ambient light, which is a general illumination. It's a nice, comfortable level of light without any glare. Next is accent light, which is more of a localized and directional light to highlight objects, art, features, any sort of details that you want to accent. Third is task. This is focused for a specific activity or project. As we discuss lighting in each room shortly, we'll look at different ways to light those rooms using all three of these layers of light.
Also, just some general considerations that you want to discuss with your customer as before you're making your selections. The first one is, what tasks take place in the space? Is it homework, watching television, reading, all of them? Because each one of them will require a different light source or light level. Also, ceiling height. The light needs to be able to reach the intended surface. So you have to make sure that you have the correct lamping and fixture chosen for the appropriate fixture chosen for the height of the ceiling. The size of the room will also play a large role. Is it large or is it small? You may need to have more than one fixture, more than one ceiling fan, or have additional recess. And then also just along with that, kind of what architectural details and adjoining spaces may factor in. Also, we talked about already, the colors of the room make a big difference. But the biggest point here is darker colors will absorb more light. Lighter colors will be more reflective. So again, either the amount of lumens that you use or the quantity of fixtures that you use will need to adjust accordingly. And then also we have to consider form versus function. What's the goal of the customer? Is it more aesthetic or is the function side more important? And can you balance both? You often can, but it's important to know, if they just really want it to look beautiful and have a beautiful hanging piece of art and the lumen output isn't important in that particular space, it will help you drive you to the correct fixture. Obviously, a style aesthetic is going to matter. And if the customer is looking for a colonial feel, a mid-century modern, maybe modern farm or organic or more transitional. And then once the goals have been identified, you'll be ready to make that luminaire selection. But I also want to mention, of course, budget. That will play a big role in any selections that you make. Can you tell us a little bit about our options on providing light, Nick?
Absolutely. So types of luminaires. You can see the list there. Anything from chandeliers, flush mounts, sconces, and then all the variety of different sort of tracks, portable lights. So these are things on the wall, on the ceiling, on the floor, everywhere in between. Lighting characteristics. This can be difficult to show in a showroom setting, but it is very important to explain the lighting characteristics of a particular fixture. As you've seen here in this photo to the right, the light play with the shadows and the pattern that this light gives off on the wall and even the ceiling, even though we're just seeing the wall here, is a very distinctive pattern that it creates. And some might see this and say, wow, I love that. Almost looks like art on my wall now when that light fixture's on. And some people are going to be off this type of pattern or shadows and light play on the wall.
So now we're going to move into lighting rooms. We're going to start with the bath. Task is really important here, but layers and options really give you that spa bath experience. So for ambient light, you could either use some decorative or some recessed lighting. For accent, maybe you want to have something in the toe kick or accent sconces around the space. But again, as I mentioned, that task at the vanity. Typically, we always recommend side lighting if possible, about 36 to 40 inches apart and about 60 to 70 inches off the floor. Obviously, that will depend on the fixture that you choose, your spacing, but that cross lighting is really optimal. When you have light on each side of your face, it reduces the shadows, helps us all look a little bit better. When we accentuate those shadows, we all look a little sallow and sunken in. Over the mirror lighting can be absolutely appropriate though as well, and that would be mounted approximately 76 to 80 inches from the floor. It should typically be about 24 inches wide to balance out. Recess over the vanity can be used as supplemental lighting. I would not recommend it being used alone over a vanity. In general, while it's important to know where and how the light provided will look and perform, it's just as important to understand the shadows and those dark spots created by the placement and design of that luminaire selected, which leads me back to what I already mentioned, how when you have recess over that vanity, you're going to create shadows on the face. It can feel very harsh and difficult to perform tasks like applying makeup or shaving. So it's just good information to explain to your customer. And it also may be an opportunity for you to add on your vanity lights if they had planned on just doing recess.
The dining room. So ambient light is the most important in a dining room, but the accent light is what will make a space impressive and adds ambience. A fixture above a table should be roughly half the diameter of that table, or you can also add the length and width of the room, and that number in inches should be the diameter of the fixture. So for example, a 10 by 14 room, you're going to want roughly a 24-inch diameter fixture. The bottom of a dining room chandelier should sit roughly 32 to 34 inches above from the table. Ambient lighting, you got over the table, do multiple recess pendants for chandeliers, recess lighting, that'll create some accent lighting as well, sconce, recess on artwork or architectural features are also some options in the dining room.
So next we move into the kitchen, kind of a critical lighting location for most people. You need great general lighting and you need great task lighting in multiple areas in a kitchen. Kind of starting with that ambient lighting, recessed lighting is going to give you a great spread of light. Typically, I recommend putting that right at the edge of the counter. Center spaces don't need to be lit. You want the light where your task is. For me, symmetry is less important than putting the light where you need it. But some customers will want those in rows and lines and evenly spaced. That's kind of up to you to let them know and find out from them what's more important. When you do put them at the counter's edge, you can highlight the cabinets and appliances beautifully. And as I mentioned, it gets the light where you need it. Now, going to task lighting, you can alleviate some shadowing issues by putting under cabinet lighting in there to help fill in the workspace. Maybe over an island, you'll want to do decorative placements, some pendants, usually 28 to 34 inches above the counter, or hanging 32 to 34 over a table. For accent lighting, you might want to add some over cabinet lighting or interior cabinet lighting, toe kick, open shelves could be lit with LED tape. It's so easy to light so many things now. You can really have a lot of fun, and the kitchen is a fun place to do that. And then I had mentioned the under cabinet lighting. I do recommend placing at the front edge of the cabinet as well. It gets the light out into the workspace as opposed to caught along the wall. That said, sometimes if somebody's putting a textural tile or something that they really are looking more to have it highlighted, then if you have recessed lighting that is placed along the counter edge, it becomes a little less important to move it out as far. So those are some questions you'd have to talk with your client about.
Okay, moving into the living room or family room. We need ambient light, but the accent light will add drama and ambience to the space. Cast lighting is also going to be needed next to couches or certain chairs for reading, etc. So ambient light, recessed lighting, and placement. We don't want it shining directly over where someone's going to be sitting. Decorative, lots of appropriate solutions here, really open up to what your client wants and what is going to fit in that particular space. Ceiling fan can be an option as well. Just always make sure when you're doing the ceiling fan to be aware of recess placement to avoid getting a strobing effect, having the blades pass underneath a light source. Sconces work great in a living room or family room. Can also be great to highlight some artwork or on a fireplace, mantle. Recess, track or rail, those are also some great avenues to go in a living room and a family room. And then again, like we discussed, task lighting, portable lamps, floor lamps, table lamps, all of those get mixed in to help with reading, or even as a decorative nature as well in the living room.
So the bedroom, this is a place where I feel like options are needed. Most often flush, semi-flush, or ceiling fans are used in the center of the space. Considerations are very similar to what we talked about in the living room and family room. It's really a matter of what your client wants as far as a ceiling fan goes. And then just when you're doing a semi-flush or a hanging fixture, obviously take into consideration carefully the placement of where that light is. If it's over the bed, you might be able to drop it down a little bit further, but if it's not, you've got to watch the ceiling height and furniture location in the bedroom.
Okay, the hall and foyer spaces. So these are passing spaces. So these are great to accent features, little niches, artwork. Ambient light would be used in here. Make sure you pay attention to where the recessed light would be placed if you're doing recessed light or decorative ceiling fixtures. Accent lighting, sconces. Again, recess can be used with that, with directional gimbals. And then task lighting, little table lamps. Probably not going to see a floor lamp in there, but table lamps, accent lamps could be used in a hall or a foyer.
And the one thing you wanted, I just mentioned too, in a foyer, especially if you have a 2-story foyer, think about access and how you're going to change the light bulbs. Then we're going to talk about the theater a little bit. A lot of home theaters going in now need really flexible light levels here. Very different if you're watching TV or watching a movie versus you're vacuuming or dusting or cleaning up after the popcorn's everywhere. No glare is really important. So be aware of where the screen is going to be placed in the space so that all of your spacing will be appropriate. Again, typically I like to do recess. It's a great thing that you have off during viewing, but when you need to vacuum, you have a ton of light. Accent lighting sconces are a great thing here, especially when you can place them so you can dim them down. Cove lighting or toe kick lighting along the bottom of the room is another great option to help give you no glare when viewing.
Exterior or outside. So outside lighting, thing to remember, less is more. The goal is no glare. Options, and dimmers are a great choice. Ambient light, we have post light options, house mount as we see here, garage door on the sides of the garage door, and even recess lighting. So accent lighting, we have landscape lighting, hardscape lighting. With task lighting, again, we have floodlight options. If you want to highlight a walking space, if you have a longer path to a doorway, anything in that nature. That would be all for exterior lighting.
So we're going to do a quick recap on some of the guidelines that we gave you. And obviously there are a lot of factors that play into designing a well-lit space. So while we've given you these guidelines, as always, rules are made to be broken. Trends will influence selection. The design of the fixture itself plays a role. And simply just what your client likes or doesn't like will all impact what the best choice is. Your goal is to just use your knowledge to guide the client, listen to their needs and goals, and help them find the right choice. What you see on this slide is a compilation, as I mentioned, of the guidelines. The first one is rules are made to be broken. Adding the length and width of a room together in feet, converting that to inches should be your approximate diameter. A fixture above the table, roughly half the diameter of the table. Pendants should sit 28 to 34 inches above the kitchen island countertop. Sconces on either side of the bathroom mirror. We talked about that cross lighting being important. A fixture over the bathroom mirror, at least 24 inches wide, just helps with balance. And then a front door lantern size that's approximately about a third the height of the door is usually the best way to go, which for some people feels very large. But if you remember those pictures, they actually scale out really, really well. So do we have any questions today? Well, if not, if you think of something later, certainly contact any of our team. We're happy to answer those for you, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. We hope the information that we've given you helps provide a deeper understanding of some of those general lighting concepts, so that you can more effectively serve your customer. We are available to do individualized or in-person or video conference training on anything that you need. So if there's some topic that we haven't covered, let us know. We're happy to do that for you. Help give us some ideas too, as to make sure that what we do in our training is relevant to what you need. So again, have a great day. If you have any questions, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.